Hello, everyone. My name is Marie Renvelez with USC Visions and Voices, the Arts and Humanities Initiative. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for tonight's event, Sweet and Salty, a conversation with Asian American women chefs. This event was originally scheduled to happen at the end of March this past spring, and while the pandemic forced us to transition to an online format, I am so grateful and excited that this virtual event now allows us to accommodate so many people and to have folks tuning in from across the country. At Visions and Voices, we believe it's important to open our events by acknowledging the Indigenous land that we share. By presenting conversations like the one we have tonight, part of the work that we do is to make the invisible visible. We also believe that it is not the responsibility of those who have been made invisible to remind us that they are still here. Therefore, the Visions and Voices program acknowledges that the University of Southern California and the USC Pacific Asia Museum were built on the ancestral and sacred land of Tongva Nation. We honor the Tongva and all Indigenous people, past, present, and future, and we pay respect to their continued survival and contributions to our society. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that this country would not exist without the free enslaved labor of Black people. We share these acknowledgements to raise awareness about the histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to pay respect to the original caretakers of this land, and to recognize our place in this history. We hope that this work continues beyond our events and helps to inform our individual and collective actions in the years ahead and for generations to come. Thank you. I would now like to hand this off to the wonderful people who have worked so hard to organize and produce this timely and engaging event with Asian American women chefs. So please welcome Director of the USC Pacific Asia Museum, Bethany Montagano.
Thank you so much, Marie. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that's joining us. I can't believe how many people are actually joining us from across the country and not just in LA. And we are just so thankful that everybody can show up and that we can still build connection and community. I think that, we need to really think about what food does for us. I think that's why we're all here. I think sharing a meal has stood as one of the few things that all of us, whoever we are, wherever we come from, have in common, right? And, meals are a place where we can come together over one of humanity's most ancient and simple rituals. It's a place where we can share meaningful stories, good food, and a sense of community. And it's a place where we can be and belong. And that is so important right now as we deal with social unrest and we deal with a public health crisis, that we can come to a place to be and belong. And I think food helps us do that. And, with the social impact mission that we have at the USC Pacific Asia Museum, that mission is about elevating our shared sense of humanity and building intercultural understanding. And we need all of the humanity that we can muster right now. If we're going to shift ground beneath the places where hate rests, then we need to become proximate to our humanity. And food is such a strong and powerful conduit to help us do that. So I want to thank our renowned chefs for this rare opportunity to have a peer into their artistry and for sharing that with us, but also for sharing their humanity with us. Our cultures, our identities, our memories, and our family trees go so deep into our food and our food practices. And when a chef prepares a meal for you, or they give you the rare opportunity to learn from them, they are bearing a piece of their soul with us. And I want to say thank you to them for doing this for us, and thank you to the people that were able to produce this virtual program to make sure that it could still be meaningful for all of us. And I just really want to say I appreciate everybody coming together tonight. So I want to hand it over to you, Christina. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Bethany, for those wonderful remarks. My name is Christina Hernandez Guerrero, and I currently oversee the public and campus programs at the USC Pacific Asian Museum. I too would like to thank all of you for joining us this evening. As Marie mentioned, our panelists, moderator, and myself have patiently waited to greet all of you. So I'm thrilled to now introduce our amazing foodie ensemble. At this time, please help me in welcoming our moderator, Jean Trinh. Jean is an award-winning LA-based journalist who writes about food, culture, and travel. Her work has been published in outlets like Vice, the Los Angeles Magazine, and Eater LA. Next up, we have the amazing Isa Fabro. Isa is a critically acclaimed, award-winning LA chef. Her delectable work can be seen in numerous publications, including the Asian Journal, Compound Butter Magazine, the LA Times, and the New York Times. Our other extraordinary panelist, Sonoko Sakai, is a cooking teacher, food writer, author, and producer based in LA. Sonoko was most recently featured in the New York Times Tea Magazine as one of 15 creative women of our time. And lastly, we have the phenomenal Cecilia Leung. Cecilia grew up in a Cantonese restaurant family and taught herself how to bake and cook by watching her father in the kitchen. She is formerly the executive chef at Little Flower Cafe in Lincoln, both in Pasadena, California, and she is now consulting at Proof Bakery in Atwater Village. So it's my pleasure to now introduce all of them. I'm going to hand this off to Jean now. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you tonight virtually. Before I begin, I'd like you to know that our chat function will be disabled during the conversation, but we'd love for you to ask questions throughout the conversation. You can do it in the Q&A chat that's on the lower part of your screen, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the conversation. And now, let's welcome to the stage our guests. We have Sonoko Sakai.
Hello, how are you? Hi, everybody.
Hi, good. We have Isa Fabro. And Cecilia Leung. Hi, Cecilia.
Hi.
Yay.
Okay, now the whole gang's here. All right. I wanted to thank you guys all for being here tonight. I'm so excited to talk to all of you. I know that you all come from different cultural backgrounds and you all have different inspiring stories about your journeys to get to where you are today as Asian American women chefs, cooks, and educators. You know, one of the most important things that inform the way we think about food stems from our childhood memories, which is something I've been experiencing a lot as I've been holed up in my home. And Sonoko, I understand that your grandmother inspired your first cookbook, The Poetical Pursuit of Food. What were some of your strongest memories of being in the kitchen with her that still affect the way you approach food today?
I think it was, and this all happened when I actually grew up, I was born in New York and raised in the United States and Mexico, but I went back to Japan and lived next door to my grandmother when I was about 9 years old for about 6 years during that time. And it was just wonderful. It was a liberating experience because I am the eldest among 5 kids, and to go to my grandma and hang out with her in the kitchen was just freedom. And for her to just let me cook with her was just probably the most profound education I ever had, you know, and the most inspiring, because she was really about cooking with good ingredients and cooking with local seafood and working with, you know, buying from farmers. So I got to see everything, you know, since I was a very young child. And that was I think that really formed the foundation of the way I cook today.
That's so a special experience to get to cook with
Yes.
your family like that.
Yeah.
And I know that not everyone has the same experience. You know, all the panelists have different experiences with their cooking with their family. I know that Isa, you've integrated Filipino flavors into your desserts, like your signature mango royale pie that I'm obsessed with, and your isamada. And however, I know that you didn't grow up learning about these flavors in your parents' kitchen. Can you talk about that and how you ended up incorporating these flavors into the food you make today?
Yeah, so I really only started cooking Filipino food just back in 2016. And growing up, there was Filipino food at home, but there was also this just being American kind of mentality. So a lot of times going out to eat, celebrations, it was always like Westernized food was put on a pedestal. Then when I started cooking, you know, you learn about the great cuisines as being, you know, French, Italian, and those techniques. So what ends up happening is if you aren't from those cultures, it kind of feels like, oh, wait, so this is considered good food, and maybe what they would consider peasant food not as great. So after learning all of that, I was able to kind of rediscover just the Filipino food that, yes, I was having as a kid, but then also just start cooking it in a creative way, combining that with just the work experience I'd had. So that came up with the pies, and then just like these flavors that, you know, maybe, wow, I really liked, like the mango royale, like having a mango in the Philippines in peak season, you know, how do you capture that experience, you know, make a dessert where it really does the fruit justice. So it's really been me trying to reconnect with the culture that I didn't really grow up with in a way. And also just trying to learn and interact with people and sharing something with them that I've created.
Yeah. And kind of going back to, you know, cooking, like learning from family too as well. For Cecilia, I know that you spent a lot of time in your grandparents' and father's kitchens. I'm curious, as a chef, when you recreate dishes from memory, do you think it has to taste exactly like how you remembered as a child in order for you to be happy about it?
Definitely not. I think just the sake that it evokes that memory is enough, you know, because food evolves, ingredients evolve, and so we know that there is change, but just the act of preparing it and thinking back to the memory is enough, because when you recreate it, you think back to all the times that I've shared with my grandmother, or, you know, my family around the table. It doesn't have to be an exact replica. The recipe doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That's how I feel about it too. Does anyone feel similarly or differently about that?
Well, I grew up in Japan and other countries, and I find myself being almost the same age as my grandma when I first met her for the second time, and learning how to make pickled plums, salted pickled plums called umeboshi, which is a very traditional Japanese pickle. And I'm making it here every season in May, and I'm just getting the finished product now, but they're not the same plums because the trees are different, the climate's different, the environment that you're, you know, that you have is different, but you still have the memories, and those memories are so precious. And so, yes, I'm becoming like that wrinkly plum that I used to make fun, you know, talking thinking about the wrinkly umeboshi was my grandmother's nickname, but now that's me. But I kind of, I think it just brings so much joy because now I could maybe, pass that on to my grandchildren or, my son, hopefully, someday they'll want to learn it. We'll see.
I wouldn't say that you're becoming wrinkly. I would say that you're becoming more full flavored.
Oh, I actually found a device on this Zoom where you could, or my assistant, figure out how you could enhance your skin tone. So, you know me.
Wow, you're one step
how I
above.
look in real person. So I'm telling you, I am hiding my wrinkles.
Well, we can't tell. Like when we think about like kind of going back to recreating those dishes, I know Sonoko, you grew up in different countries from Japan to Mexico and the US and here in LA. And I was curious, like how have these different experiences contributed to the way that you're approaching recreating traditional Japanese dishes?
Well, I used to think that you could only be very authentic if you were in Japan. Like you use the authentic seaweed or, the rice or, it wasn't Japanese if you were cooking with rice made here in California. But then I realized that this country is built by immigrants, and there's plenty of Japanese immigrants that migrated. There's Chinese, Filipino, all these people brought with them in their pockets grains of rice because they wanted to bring their culinary culture. And I feel like, okay, this is rice grown in California. It may not have the same stickiness as the rice in Japan, but I think this is authentic to me because this is what I grew up here. And when I go to Japan, there is that traditional way of raising rice that tastes slightly different, but I decided that authenticity really comes from within each cook, or my experience is that I think I'm authentic enough in my own way, and that's good, and that's my tradition. I have to start saying this is my culture, my Japanese culinary culture, and I don't want to think that I'm like inferior or I just try to emulate Japanese culture, but I think I'm preserving it the way I like to preserve it. And I'm very respectful though. I go back to Japan a lot. I read about Japan. It's always with me, and so that's how I interpret authenticity.
And when we're talking about authenticity, I'm also curious, Isa, how do you feel about authenticity for Filipino food or your own food?
I think it's safe to say that all cuisines are heavily seasonal and regional. So whatever you're cooking, you're cooking what's around you, right? So you may have a dish and you really do see this a lot in the Philippines where it'll have one dish, but it's different from region to region because they don't have a certain vegetable or they don't have, a certain protein. And you bring that kind of technique still with you here. So, me cooking in California, in Los Angeles, with all the great produce, you kind of just use what you have. And you can take a classic dish, something like a savory, like sinigang, which is the sour soup, right? Which a lot of Filipinos make with salmon, but there's no salmon in the Philippines. But the point is that they're using a very rich, oily fish, and it just makes this really nourishing soup that fatty fish is able to, just bring out that sour broth with all of the vegetables. So you have something like that. We have desserts where you can combine like the rice and then just the seasonal stone fruit, which is very popular. And that's not only a Filipino thing, but very just Asian, with using the rice flours, whether they're glutinous or, just the regular rice flour, and it gives a different texture. So it is making the best of what you have around you, right? Making it taste good, feeding yourself, feeding other people. And that, yes, that's what I feel like, what it means to be authentic in your cooking.
That's really beautiful, and how I feel about like my culture and everything like that. And you know, now like I kind of want to talk about some of the big issues that we're facing in the food industry. I'm curious, for Cecilia, like you work in a field that's dominated by men. I was curious, how have you faced and overcome challenges in the restaurant industry as an Asian American woman?
I think in the beginning, uh, I would say the majority of us women in the kitchen were pretty much expected to be in the pastry kitchen because that was more dainty. A lot of people didn't think that we can take the heat, but I think we've proven to a lot of people that we could take the heat and we will work side by side with you on the line, no problem. I mean, sometimes like I run on that adrenaline rush of hearing the tickets being printed and just like moving those tickets down the rail and pushing the food through. I mean, that it just like gets me really pumped up, and seeing what is accomplished at the end of service is amazing. And so it took, mind you, it does take a lot of grit and determination to like kind of push all the judgment or opinions aside and just be focused on what is your career goal and to achieve it. And once you achieve it and you become part of the leadership, you're changing the culture so that you are more inclusive of everyone who comes into the kitchen.
Isa, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, yes, I do. So, yeah, working as a woman in the kitchen. Wow. Yes, we are underestimated, and we have to earn the respect of our coworkers even more so than, maybe someone who, hey, they can lift 50 pounds, 100 pounds, right? But I do have a story where there was a restaurant I was working, and I was the only woman in a whole crew of older Oaxacan gentlemen who were all cooks at this restaurant, going on probably since the restaurant opened in the 80s. And they just worked, and I came in, and they didn't really talk to me. I had my little fry station job. And once I started cooking a crew meal for them, then they realized that I could cook. Because when you have to cook for 30, 35 people every day for lunch, something really good and nourishing, and, prep your station and run service and prep up dinner service. So the dinner person, because they're probably going to have 200 covers, then they realize, oh, okay, you know what? They're actually working hard. They making good food. And then they started kind of teaching me a few things. So yes, as a woman, but I also feel like as long as you're able to earn that respect, because you can't hide who you are in the kitchen either. They will know if you don't know what the hell you're doing. They will know if you are flying under the radar and just barely doing what you need to get done. They're not going to take you seriously. But if they see that you're hauling ass, I don't know if I can say that, but they will respect you, and they will work with you, and then you are a cook, and that's it. It's not about being a man or a woman. You are just a cook, and you are one of them. Yes.
That's really inspiring. You just got to be tough.
Yeah.
And as more people are doing more home cooking during the pandemic, there are also some bigger issues that we need to look at as well at home. Sonoko, I know that sustainability and climate change are some issues that you feel passionately about. What do you think we could be doing more as home cooks to be more responsible in this regard?
I think pay attention. Pay attention. I mean, not every home cook can shop at the farmer's market or have the economic strength to go out and buy all organic food. But I really think that good home cooking has to start with the cook, and it's part of how you educate, how you nurture a family. And I grew up in a very large family of 5 kids, and my mother did everything she could to nourish us in a good way, but she was still relying on boxes of MSG and dashi powder and the curry brick roux that had all kinds of additives. And it's just trying to become more aware of what it is that you're feeding your family. And even though I've always been more conscious about feeding my family good food, I was still relying on these like curry bricks, the curry roux that's full of junk, until I one day realized that I can't do that anymore. And it just took one decision. Sometimes it's just one decision. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to see if I could learn how to make something that's more wholesome, or it's switching, or it's compromising, or it's just small steps that you take. But sometimes that could lead to really big improvements in the way your family health is, your own health is. And so I've become an advocate of teaching home cooking, because I think that everything essential really starts at home, and it starts with eating well. And this country has a serious problem of obesity and eating too much. And so I think like eating in moderation, or what you eat, what you put on your plate. And I think that because I was brought up multiculturally, I could see different traditions, and I try to learn about them and share what's good of these food traditions. So yeah, I have my work cut out for the rest of my life. I think home cooking is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are realizing it now as they're at home. They're just spending.
No, it's the best opportunity is, you say you're hunkered down, oh, we're stuck, we can't go anywhere. Yes, I understand the impact that it has on the food industry, like in restaurants, but on the other hand, here's a chance to really look at what you're cooking for your family and what can we do to make it better. And so, I'm cooking more than ever, and even gardening and trying to get cooks to go and plant something and use that to cook with, and then return it to the garden to compost it. So teaching this whole cycle of cooking with wholesome ingredients, really important.
Yeah, I think it's so important to connect food to where it comes from and how we have a role in that. So hopefully more people are cooking at home.
Do you think that people should be at home, like studying kind of the traditions and things like that a little more?
I mean, they don't necessarily have to study the traditions. It'd be great to, but I think just the act of cooking brings the family together, whether it's prepping and cooking the meal in the kitchen, or even just the simple act of sitting down together. I think as a society, we do that less often now. I mean, growing up, we always met at our grandparents' house and had dinner every Sunday evening together. Like the TV would be off, like we gather around the whole table, we squeeze each other all in, and we converse and just continue to build our relationship with each other, which unfortunately, like our lives now have kind of shifted where I see less of that. So it'd be great to take advantage of this hunkering down at home to really gather together again.
And, you know, I'm kind of curious now that we're, you know, speaking of being at home a lot and being in this pandemic, I know people who, like, I'm curious, Cecilia, how have you had to pivot your practice during this pandemic?
So this is why I'm now consulting. So I kind of had to like figure things out, especially with a lot of restaurants closing, whether temporarily or permanently. And so I'm also just offering my knowledge and service to other teams so that they can be sustainable, because right now it's really about making sure that the restaurant industry can be sustainable. I mean, not just in terms of paying a living wage, but also healthcare. Also making sure, which we've always been doing, but making sure that we continually develop the technical skills of every one of our staff members so that they can continue to sustain the business, whether they intend to stay with the restaurant or even to move on, because it's really about supporting each other for the longevity of this business, of this industry. And also I'm just, you know, I also do some cooking at home and offering recipes that can be done easily at home for other people, especially with kids. You know, a lot of this distance learning is driving mom and dads and children mad. And so sometimes you just need something fun. You need something with like dexterity, get them moving, because we can't sit in front of a screen for 20 minutes, let alone like 4 hours.
How about Isa and Sonoko, have you guys had to change some of the ways you're doing your business?
Well, yeah. So normally I'll have a whole year planned out, which is kind of crazy, but that's kind of like how the momentum has been going. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't see. And like Cecilia, you know, doing chef consulting, luckily I was able to be hired as a chef consultant late last year, and I am still working with them. And it's a Danish food concept called Open Face Food Shop. And it's very much a skeleton crew. I don't know any restaurant who is not working in that way, where they're just, I mean, trying to get everything done, you know, without spending the money that they used to spend, because the money's just not coming in the way it was before. So the idea of pivoting, and, you know, now it's not about necessarily dining in, it's about, you know, what provisions or what kinds of items or supplies that you can make or jar or create for people to buy. And it's, you know, you come up with a business plan, and then that changes, and then it changes again. And that can be like 3 times it's changing in one day. Honestly, like the business model is just like, okay, now we're not going to do this. We're going to try it this way. Or like, let's try this for 1 week. Let's see how it goes. And it's just, you know, kitchen, restaurant people, I mean, the creativity is just being really, really stretched and pushed. And, you know, like, what is it called? Trying to get blood from a stone, really. It's so hard. So I'm lending my expertise to that project, and we're trying our best to, again, stay afloat. And I really don't know what's I don't know what's going to happen, but luckily, you know, like people like Cecilia and myself who have that restaurant experience, we have that knowledge that we're able to help people with, and we just have to wait and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like every day is different, and it's made us more resilient, I think, if anything. So, Sonoko, I know you teach a lot of classes in person. How have things changed for you?
So I was actually a very busy cooking teacher, and I would not only teach from my home, but I was teaching in cooking schools and going all around the country, even, you know, back east and up north, and even to like farms in Tennessee. And I was having a lot of fun traveling and cooking and spreading, uh, teaching people how to cook Japanese food. And then the pandemic happened, and it went from being very busy to zero. And I said, oh, okay, so I'm now staying home. How could I, what can I do? And the wonderful thing was Slow Food invited me. Other chefs have invited me to do these Instagram live videos. I have no technical skill. As you know, I don't even know how to mute myself, and I was learning that. I had my kitchen staff that was just, I was asking to do prep and doing dishes. Turned out some of them were very tech savvy. So like I'm actually very loyal to her, and she's so loyal to me, but she helped me set up this webinar classes. And I have to say, it has become the most incredible experience I've had as a cooking teacher, because now I reach everybody from Alaska, overseas, and, people from Vermont, from Boston. I'm doing quite well. And also I've been doing like webinars for corporations, like Santori calls me, or I work for Nickelodeon, so there's opportunities for me to still teach, and then I don't have to do the dishes like I used to. Like I would be exhausted, like a lot of foot traffic and, like it's like catering too, you're just like, my whole Prius was always stuffed with pots and pans and dirty dishes that I have to bring home and wash, and rice cookers. I have like 6 rice cookers. I was starting during this pandemic, I started giving away my rice cookers, because I kind of like this format where you get to virtually connect with people. But I still miss people. I really do. So when there are opportunities to do social distancing in-person events, I like it very much. So hopefully the pandemic will go away and we could do these things. But I don't know if I'll ever do these ambitious, events where I have to pretend like I'm a chef. I mean, I respect chefs. That's a lot of work that they do every day. It's volume is so much work and coordination, and so I like doing it at a small scale, and this webinar is doing really nice. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, thank you.
How to change.
Yeah.
And going back to chefs, of people who want to go back into the industry when this is all over, I'm curious, from your opinion, Isa, do you think culinary school is necessary?
Oh my goodness. Oh boy. I don't even know are they open? Does anybody know? They're not, right?
They're slowly closing down one by one.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I've spoken to a class at LA Trade Tech, and this was a little while ago already, but I mean, all of those young cooks, I mean, where are they able to find work? They're not, right? So I really don't know how any kind of mentorship can happen, least of all jobs, just because it's always like you get into cooking because you love food, or like I need a job, it's very polarizing that way. Oh my gosh. I'm hoping that whoever pulls through, and you know, whatever recessions are happening and who knows what else, that those great establishments, you know, remember that mentorship is a big part of creating a business that lasts, not just within their own business, but just the industry as a whole. So, you know, teaching them, and even if they move on, and they probably will, that those skills will be taken on to the next restaurant, the next, and then that person hopefully opens their restaurant. They get to that level where they become chef, right? And then they can mentor a new generation of cooks. But right now it feels like maybe that's on pause right now while everyone's trying to maintain what they have, and hopefully it can pick up when things are more stabilized. Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Isa. I think maybe LA Trade Tech is one of the few schools that are still functioning via online. I know that the CIA is still trying to pivot. I think they might still have in-person classes. But is culinary school necessary? I think that has always been the discussion, the debate amongst us in the industry. And especially now, I think, you know, if you find a master teacher like Sonoko, or anyone else who is just very focused on their craft, and they really dive deep into the traditions, the history, and also connecting to the farmers that grow the food. I mean, you can learn so much from them that culinary school isn't necessary. And also, like, this is actually, you know, as anxious as we all are waiting to see what happens, it's also very exciting to see what comes of this industry. I mean, I think a lot of people are pivoting to contactless delivery or mail order. I mean, there's a lot of different channels and avenues for us to go into. It also depends on, like, how much grit do you have to really just go all in and pursue it.
Sonoko, do you have any advice on how people can go into, like, the industry as a cookbook author or educator?
Well, I kind of, as I say, reinvented myself as a virtual cooking teacher. But at the same time, I got a lot of great feedback from students who said, well, you know, you're offering Japanese cooking classes, but these ingredients are even hard to source online because you know, they're just like so caught up with every day, just dealing with all the issues that we're dealing with. So I came up with a kit. And so for all these cooking classes that I do, they get the flour, they get the special blend, the local Tehachapi Grain Project, you know, blend, and I give the students an option to get a kit so that when we connect, they already have the ingredient and we cook together. So I already have a connection to the kit. So that's kind of giving me another shed a light into how I could become Betty Crocker. You know, I could be Betty Sonoko Sakai with these little, you know. And I actually came up with a curry brick kit that became very, very popular. And then people said, well, I don't have a dedicated spice grinder that could grind all these spices. Can you send us the powder? So I now came up with a powder, which is in the gift bag that I'm giving everybody. So that's my, like, one of these days it might become a Jeffy. I just have this idea that what's that cornbread, Jeffy?
Oh,
Jiffy.
Jiffy corn, Jiffy. Oh yeah, the blue and the white.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I love that little box and the little connector. So I was like, Sonoko little, you know. But I have this, this is actually debuting today.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
a little, it hasn't been, it's already online and I've gotten pre-orders, but it's the curry powder. So the powder is what you're getting. And see, I have like, see, it's like this little.
I want that.
It's a Target. Everybody can get one. I'll send you one. But it's, this Target represents diversity and harmony. It's about the idea of wuxing. It's the 5 colors, the 5 senses. It's about balance and harmony. And it's a Chinese philosophy that we have inherited in Japan as the way, you know, it's really incorporate the way we cook. Harmony is very important, harmony and balance. So I thought, okay, this is my curry powder, my first in line that has those ideas. And this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the pandemic. So I think you could put a different cooking, you know, different cap on and, you know, be savvy businesswoman. I don't know if it's going to work. So far, I put all my eggs into this little curry powder kit and see what happens. But, you know, I'm just making an investment into the future. And I think that's the way you have to feel. You have to feel motivated, and you have to believe in the things you do. And I've always believed that this is something that would be useful. So I think I'm about to test this market. Maybe the people that are going to try this little gift will give me some feedback.
Well, I want it. It looks so great.
I'll send you one if you don't have one. Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, yes. Well, I think that's the end of our conversation, and I'd like to open it up to the Q&A section, part of our evening, and I'll hand it over.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. This is Marie Wren again from Visions and Voices. So we are going to invite in Melody. Melody, are you here? Okay, I think we're bringing her in.
Hi.
Go ahead, Melody.
Oh, I thought the question was going through somewhere else. But I just wanted to know, you guys talked a little bit about sustainability, and there was 2 parts. One of them is what is one of the issues you see with the food industry and when it comes to sustainability, and the other one is how do you what practices do you have in your own kitchen so you don't waste food? Like, is there a leftover recipe you have that you use to make sure like your food doesn't go in the trash?
Really, a quick way to use waste, at least in my home kitchen, is that I just continually make stock. Like anytime I'm chopping herbs or vegetables, like any ends, bits, or pieces, I just throw them into the stock pot and I make stock, and then I can use it in the next recipe. So I don't waste anything. And then after you strain the stock, if it's vegetables, and you can put it into your compost bin.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're going to go to the next person, who is Rosemary. Whenever you're ready, Rosemary, you can ask your question.
Did you call on me, Rosemary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just real curious. One of my children went vegan 3 years ago, and she's moved back home, and we're doing a lot more vegetables. I'm curious, what are your favorite vegetables to cook, and how do you prepare them?
Oh, wow. Well, let's see, what's seasonal right now?
Eggplant.
Eggplant. Oh my God. Yes.
So good.
Really, really good. Don't sleep on the different lettuces also that you can find. There are some really beautiful, just like whether it's like French lettuce, red leaf, curly lettuce, The stuff that's seasonal right now coming into late summer, you have the corn. Please eat the corn while you can, because it is so good. And it won't be there in February, and you'll be kicking yourself when you want to eat it then. And then we're also going to start getting into the squashes, melons. That's not a vegetable, but you can also apply those in a savory application to the tomatoes. That's also a fruit. Whoops. But oh my gosh, all the chards, all the cauliflower, amazing, wild broccoli. I mean, I don't know where you're calling from, but I see a lot of farmers market produce, and the better the vegetable, really, you only have to do minimal to it. It could be just as easy as just roasting it on a grill, and you would be amazed at how good just that vegetable is when it roasts up, and it's just the aroma and the sweetness.
Gives it that umami and
yeah,
that
it's just, yeah.
flavor.
Vegetables are the hardest thing to cook because meats, those are easy. But if you can make vegetables, and yeah, I love vegetables. Okra. Okay, no, okay.
Oh yeah,
okra.
So
Okra
good.
right now too, yeah. And pickling those too. Pickling beans, pickling the okra. That's a fun project to get those vegetables in season. And if you're able to do it and you're able to open up that jar of that summer okra with a little bit of spice and eat that in the dead of winter, it's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of peppers are in season right now, so roasting a lot of those peppers are great. And just like what Isis said, being able to preserve those items and having it in the fall or winter time is fantastic.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, try seaweed. How about some sea plants? You know, I come from a culture where we eat seaweed every single day. So if there are 50,000 land plants, there's 50,000 seaweed types, and Japanese eat quite a number of them. But you can make a beautiful broth using a kombu seaweed, and it's high in minerals. Just doing a cold brew with that and making like a miso soup. Have you had miso soup? This will make your vegan family so happy, because Japan was basically a vegan country, being Buddhist. We didn't start eating meat until, less than 2 centuries ago. So it's, there's a lot of vegan based dishes. And if you learn about even nori seaweed to wrap like a little sushi, is a really good place to start.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosemary. Our next question, I'm going to read from Melanie, who's attending tonight. Can you speak on the lack of representation or overt whitewashing or racism in food publications, such as with Bon Appetit? And how have you personally experienced this with your own work?
That is such a heavy question. I don't even
that's
know
a lot.
where to begin.
A lot. I mean, okay, so just today I saw a video from Tastemade, and they were making an ube recipe. And I think ube is one of those things that's really hit pop culture in terms of food. It's the purple yam. But in their video, they're showing an Okinawan sweet potato, right? And so the idea is that you think that these entities that are showing you something know what they are presenting, but then they obviously do not. And it's misleading, it's just incorrect. So people are now calling that out, whereas probably 10, 20 years ago, it was just like, nobody really said anything. It's just like, oh, it's okay. And now people are like, no, that's actually wrong. You are wrong, and I can say that you're wrong. I see this a lot in Filipino food, where maybe in other cultures there has been cultural appropriation where, with history, it's just how those cultures have assimilated into Western civilization, where, you know, you can have something called teriyaki or something called egg roll, right? And it's kind of understood that, okay, well, that's teriyaki, but it's not the teriyaki that, you know, or the tare that you have in Japan, right? Or this kind of like fried dumpling that maybe you'd have in mainland China or in Taiwan. But with Filipino food, not a lot of people are culturally appropriating Filipino food. And so I feel like as a Filipino American chef, like we can really claim our cultural food, because it is a little bit weird to understand. Not a lot of people get it. You know, I think people are still thinking, oh, well, it's like Chinese food, but it's sour. That's like saying Korean food is like Japanese and Chinese mixed together because it's in the middle. So it's a lot of this kind of really elementary thinking and this kind of eye rolling thing. Sometimes the things that you read and you see, and it's, yes, it's all about, we're going to call you out now on your bullshit. Oop, can I say that? I don't know. But it's bullshit. Yes. And we are either going to take the time to educate you, or even better, you educate yourself, because that is your responsibility. It's not mine. How's that? Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody?
Thank you. No, I mean, that's,
Cheers.
I appreciate
Cheers.
that so much. So up next we have Duyen. Duyen, if you like, you can just ask your question on audio, or you can turn on your camera. You're up.
Hi, thank you to our panelists for sharing your insights and experiences today. My question is, I read, I think it was from a chef, that to be a good chef, be it a home cook or, you know, a professional chef, is to really develop your palate. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of how to help everyday folks like me to just develop and refine our palate. What should we be doing when we're eating? Because I eat a lot, and so what are there things I should be looking at, or, you know, like what to do to kind of just develop that so that you could get a better sense and appreciation for food?
I would say first, don't over salt or eat too many salty foods, because it actually does ruin your palate. Because, you know, our tongue has so many different sensory, can't think of the scientific word right now, but like, so I think my first advice is just taste everything before you cook it, so you taste the raw form of it and also the cook form to see how it changes according to your cooking or baking application. And then when you're eating, I know this is now sounding very technical, but, you know, as you're tasting it, like, you know, really let the flavors kind of like meld into your tongue, so you can pick up like the sweet, the salty, the bitter, the sour, the heat, so that you become, I guess, more well-versed in food critique.
I would also say, you know, when you're tasting food, why do you like the taste of that particular food or that particular dish? You know, is it something, and it could be something, it could be a dish that, you know, maybe you'll order at different restaurants, or, you know, people that make that certain dish. But if there's something just a little bit different, or you see, oh, I really like the way they did that little thing to that, but I also like how this person, this little twist. And then you know, start cooking and you be creative, and you're like, well, if I like it a little bit spicier, I'm going to add more pepper. You know, wasn't enough for me, because it's your palate too, right? So in developing that, you have to know what you like. You have to understand why. I mean, I tend to like, you know, sweet and salty things. I do like sour things. I do like spicy things. But I don't like sweet things, which is, you know, people think, well, wait, you work in pastry, but it's like, no, there's a way to temper that sweetness with, again, tasting the fruit and knowing what that fruit really tastes like without having to put 10 pounds of sugar in it because you think that's what you need to do to make it taste good. So, you know, your palate, not an elevated palate, you know, what do you like? What is your palate about? You know, and make food that you like to eat and that you like to share.
Okay, great. Thanks, Duyan. We have one last question. We have so many questions, and unfortunately we can't get to it all, but our last question is coming from Alejandra. So Alejandra, we're inviting you in, and if you could turn on your camera and microphone.
Hi, so my name's actually Kira. Me and my friend are watching your guys' kind of webinar at the same time. But I had her ask my question for me, which is, being a chef is something that's always been like on the back burner of my mind, more so because my parents are more so like, you know, go with a little safer of a career, you know, something along those lines. And so straying off of that without full support of family would be really nerve-wracking and like just uncomfortable to do the whole thing. So my question to all of you is, what is your experience with, you know, starting out in this type of career when, you know, maybe your parents weren't supportive straight off the bat, or if they were, awesome, I would love to hear that too. But yeah, that's my question.
I could give you my quick answer to that because I was in the film industry for many years, but I always had one foot in cooking. I really wanted to. I mean, my sister became a pastry chef, and I really envy that she was a chef and I was doing something else. But I also love film. But at one point, I decided to leave the film industry, and I said, okay, I'm going to start doing what I really want to do, and this is food. And I wasn't at an age where I could like go to culinary school, so I kind of invented a way that I could still be useful and enjoy it. But I just think that if you have that kind of commitment and passion, you could achieve your goal. I think, like my parents always say, cooking, leave that as a hobby. Stay in film school. Don't try to do noodles now. I will take you to the best noodle shop. And I mean, when I started doing soba past 50, I was a film producer, kind of a disillusioned film producer. And I said, I think the noodle making will really help me heal. And so I didn't listen to my parents. I was going back to Japan, spending all this time like washing dishes at a restaurant and watching the Master Chef. And my father just could not believe it. He was culture shocked. But here I am today. I wish my parents were alive to see what I'm doing now. And it's never too late to follow your pursuit. You know, I just think you should try. Don't be afraid.
I think we're all career changers because I was also working in film and music.
Oh, really?
And yeah, like, you know, kind of, you know, you can have a job and it can be fun and it can be cool and easy and you can make money and it's just like, oh, but then you kind of get bored. You don't feel fulfilled, right? And when you kind of decide on something, whatever it is, and if you're talking about cooking, I mean, hey, you could be like, I want to be an accountant. I want to be the most badass accountant there is. It's that creativity and that, again, yes, that passion, but it's like, honestly, looking back, my success comes from because I finally started what I wanted to do and doing it every day with that focus and with that dedication. At the same time, I'm not saying that, oh, I wish I should have started sooner or like, had I done it? It's like, it's not that kind of subjunctive thinking of like, what if? You know, you have to go through a lot of things before you come to that idea. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still doing it and it's obviously changing now because you don't have control over anything anyway. But yeah, like I'm more interested now in, yes, working with my hands, but I feel like I'm moving towards more writing now. Still food related, but it's like, what is that thing for you that fires up everything in your mind, that really challenges you? That was always the problem for me. It's like I would just get bored, and food has been the only thing that's really just kept me on my toes all these years. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Thank you so much for your
actually,
question.
Oh,
I
Cecilia.
taught,
Oh, we
Cecilia.
gotta move
oops, sorry.
Cecilia.
Sorry about that. So that concludes the Q&A portion of this one. Sorry, Cecilia. But I want to thank you guys all for such amazing questions and answers. And I'm excited to announce that 5 lucky attendees will receive Sonoko's latest cookbook, Japanese Home Cooking, Simple Meals, Authentic Flavors. Sonoko, can you please share a little about your book?
Oh, I've written 3 cookbooks so far. And there was a little kind of a gifty one that came out about 3 years ago, but I don't count that one. It's actually been like 30 years since I wrote my last, more serious cookbook. It's taken me a long time because I said earlier I was in the film business for a while, but I've never stopped cooking. And the first book I wrote was in my early 30s. And now, 30 years later, I've written this book, and I've gained experience, and that as a home cook is, or as a cook is very important. I've raised a family. I'm now working in the, food industry. And so there's a lot in it. There's a lot of content. It's, nobody thought that I got rejected by almost every publisher to do this book on general Japanese cooking, but I really thought that Japanese home cooking was missing, and I wanted to devote my time to writing it, and I did it, and it's come out, and it seems to be working. It's selling, so I'm happy that I don't regret that I did it. It's taken me a long time though, so enjoy it.
Yes.
I hope you buy it, but you can win. If you're lucky, you might get one for free.
Yeah.
But you can buy one and gift it.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Isa?
Yeah, and in addition to the 5 books that we will raffle off, we will randomly select 100 to receive a takeaway bag. So Sonoko talked about, her beautiful curry. This gift bag will receive a little something from each of us. So Sonoko, she has the curry kit. And Cecilia, she's made a wonderful savory and sweet plum sauce that will go with her demo, which is going to happen right after this. And I'm bringing some coffee and chocolate from the Philippines. The coffee is from Asukar Coffee, which is actually a USC alumnus-owned small business here in Southern California. And Oro chocolate, which is an award-winning Filipino chocolate that is sustainable and has won many awards and is really great. Just a way to present and educate people about some of these very special items that are coming from the Philippines, but also from all of the other chefs. And as a thank you, of course, to all of you. If you want to be eligible, you need to fill out the survey. So there's going to be a survey listed in the chat box somewhere. Once you fill that out, and then fingers crossed you get one. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you again to Chef Cecilia, because she is going to demonstrate her signature wontons right now. Cecilia, are you there? Are you ready? She's raising her hands. Yes, yes. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you, Isa.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Jean, Sonoko. It was such a lovely evening with you all. So today we're going to make some wontons. This is a great activity to do with the family. If you have any young children, or even actually children of any age, they would be very super helpful in the kitchen with you. So the recipe is on the Vision and Voices page for the sweet and salty panel. So if you want to just follow along with me, or watch and then do it maybe this weekend. So in the original recipe, it calls for 8 ounces of ground pork. But unfortunately, sometimes due to the pandemic, we are not able to get the ingredient that the recipe calls for. So today I have 8 ounces of ground beef, which is totally okay. If you do choose a pork or a beef option, make sure you opt for the one that has more fat, because fat is flavor. So I put the 8 ounces of beef in the bowl, in my mixing bowl. And then I'm also adding 8 ounces of shrimp that I chopped up. Not sure if you can see, but I left the shrimp to be a little bit more chunky so that you get the bouncy texture of the shrimp in your wonton. And then I'm going to go ahead and add all of my aromatics. I have chopped ginger, shallots, I wish this was live so you can smell all the aromatics, garlic, green onion, and then I'm also going to add some soy sauce. I chose a light soy because I don't want it to be overly salty, especially later we're going to season our wonton filling with some salt and pepper. So I did choose a light soy sauce. You can find this at an Asian market. Sesame oil. This actually, I was introduced to this delicious nutty sesame oil from Sonoko. So she probably has the resource on her website to purchase this white sesame oil. And the sesame oil is great because it's going to impart a nutty flavor into your wontons. And last but not least is the Shaoxing wine. If you don't have this cooking wine at home, you can just use cooking sherry. That's totally fine. And once you have all your ingredients combined in your bowl, you're just going to mix it by hand so it all comes together. So more or less it should look like that. Okay? And so while that is marinating, I'm going to change my gloves so I can go ahead and start assembling the wontons into the wrapper. And also, while you're doing that, this is a great time to also heat up your saute pan. I've chosen a cast iron just because I like the even heating of a cast iron, and because it creates a really great char or sear onto the wonton wrappers. So if you're going to do this activity with your children, say the recipe is like too small to feed your family, you can get them to do some math and multiply and scale your recipe up. Or if you need to scale down, and then get them involved and get some of that school standards, grade level standards into your home activity. I don't know if you can see it, but my pan is actually starting to smoke and get a little bit hot, which is great because you want that heat. So next, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my wonton wrappers. Sometimes out of refrigeration, these kind of stick together. So my tip is like to use a fist and just twist so that the wrappers fan out and separate, so it's easier for you to assemble your wontons. All you need is the back handle of a spoon. And what you're going to do is take one wrapper, place it into the palm of your hand. You're going to take the back handle of your spoon and just portion about a tablespoon worth of filling. Place it into the center of your wonton wrapper, and you're going to fold and gather the ends, and then use your thumb and index finger to push the filling up so that it fills, and then release the handle, and then you have your wonton. Okay, so these wontons are great. You can also lay them flat, single layer into a container, just like what I'm doing right now, and they freeze really well. So if you want to like plan ahead and have these wontons frozen and then take them out to cook, that would be great. Thank you. So while my pan is heating up and I am assembling these wontons, if you see that your pan is heating up, that's probably also a really great time to start putting your oil into the pan. So I'm gonna actually do that. I like to use grapeseed oil because the flavor is neutral and the smoking point is lower than, say, a canola oil or an olive oil. And all you need is about maybe like a teaspoonful. I don't know if you can see in my pan. And you're just gonna swirl the oil around so that it coats the bottom of your pan really well. And then you're gonna place your wontons in a single layer right next to each other. I'm gonna do a few more. So initially, you do want your wontons to sear in the pan for about 3 to 5 minutes so that it gets a golden color on the skin. That's going to develop a crispy crust on your wontons. Do one more. I can hear the pan sizzle. Okay, so I'm going to put that in. Just let it char up or sear up for a little bit. And now, since these have meat in them, you definitely want to make sure that you're cooking them through. Right now, you can tell that they're pretty soft. So later what we're going to do is check for firmness, and if it's firm enough, then we know that it has been cooked all the way through. And while that's going, I'm just going to continue assembling more for later because I have a crew to feed on this side of the screen. They've been working really hard and making sure that this streams for all of us. So again, just wrap, pinch with your thumb and index finger. Okay, now I'm just gonna check and see if it's seared a little bit. See how it's a little bit golden? I don't know if you can see. Can we zoom in? It's getting a little bit golden. So I'm gonna leave it alone, but I am going to add a little bit of vegetable stock. Earlier, one of our viewers asked a question about what to do with discards or waste. Again, I like to make vegetable stock. I just put all of my scraps and ends into a pot, cover it with water, bring it to a boil and let it simmer for maybe about 30 minutes, and then I strain and I get a flavored stock. So I'm just gonna drizzle a little bit into my pan, and I'm gonna put a lid over the wonton so that it steams and cooks for about 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna check on them. And also, you know, as you're wrapping, sometimes like we might not know our own strength, like the earlier one, the wrapper busted. No big deal, you just unwrap it, put it back into the bowl, and just grab another wrapper. It is a very forgiving recipe. There we go. Okay. I'm going to take these off and I'm going to check on the wontons. So they're still a little bit soft, but what I'm going to do is flip them because I love crispy, and by flipping them, that just increases crispy surface area because I'm going to get crispy wontons on both sides. Okay, I'm going to let that finish up cooking. And so on the website, in addition to the pork shrimp variation, there's also a mushroom chive variation for one of our viewers who had a question about vegan recipes. I love Chinese chives. They're much thicker and bigger than the chives that we normally find in the supermarket. The flavor is almost reminiscent of ramps. It's a really delicious allium. I love eating chive dumplings and wontons, so that's a really good alternative to the meat wonton. Also here, I went to the farmer's market this past weekend, and right now peppers are in season. In the plum sauce recipe that's on the website, I'm also using red jalapeno peppers. You can use the fresh form or the dried form. Right now, Calabrian peppers are in season. They're really delicious and sweet, not too spicy. And also right now is the end of the season for plums. So these are from K&K Ranch, and the beautiful burgundy color when you cook down your plums will impart this really beautiful red-orange color. At the lighting, I don't think you can see it, but it is like a red-orange. Okay, so now I'm going to check my wontons. So they are definitely firm. So it looks like they're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and plate up. And there you have it. Beef shrimp wontons. So I hope you guys enjoy and try out the recipe soon. Back to Jean, I think.
That was amazing, and I'm so hungry. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that pinching technique. I feel like I've leveled up.
It's super easy. Like, it's great to do with kids, you know? Like, it doesn't take a lot of the, like, take out the folding, take out the intricate, you know, just pinch it and you're good to go.
That's good.
Awesome. That was amazing, and I learned so much. Thank you again, Cecilia. And it was wonderful talking with everyone. It was just enlightening, inspiring women, and I feel so, I don't know, amped up. Thank you guys again.
Thank all of you. I'm looking forward to testing these wontons. I'm definitely going to run over to the stage and have dinner. So, thank you, Cecilia. But again, to Jean, Isa, Sonoko, and Cecilia, thank you for leading such a thoughtful conversation. Although we couldn't do this in person, I'm so glad that we were able to do this online and to welcome so many more participants. And for those who joined us, thank you. I hope you have a good evening. I hope you stay safe. Keep your head up.